In a small English town, children were being born with severe physical deformities. At first, people thought it was just bad luck, but as more cases emerged, the community began to uncover a horrifying truth. This is a series based on real events. Let's discover what truly happened in Corby. Once known as a town built on steel, Corby had attracted thousands of Scottish workers to its booming steel plant. But in 1979, British Steel shut down the plant, leaving 10,000 people unemployed. To save the town, the council launched a massive land cleanup project to redevelop the old steelworks site. Fast forward to 1995. Susan, a mother of one, is surprised to find herself pregnant again. Meanwhile, Tracy is thrilled to finally be expecting her first child. While the cleanup project continues, serious safety violations are ignored. Toxic waste is transported in uncovered trucks. Drivers don't wear protective gear, and no proper cleaning is done. These trucks speed through neighborhoods, spreading hazardous dust and leaking chemicals into the environment. Council worker Ted raises concerns with the contractors, but they dismiss him. Drivers like Derek are paid per trip and cut corners to earn more, dumping the waste into open pits outside of town. Derek's wife unknowingly spreads the toxic dust further by cleaning his contaminated clothes at home. Meanwhile, Susan and Tracy meet at the hospital and become close friends. Ted's father, a sick former steelworker, urges him to leave town, but Ted chooses to stay and care for him. Ted tries to warn council member Roy Thomas about the danger, but Roy and his colleagues show no concern. Soon, Susan gives birth to a baby boy with a deformed hand, while Tracy's daughter is born after a difficult labor and has trouble feeding. Susan privately blames herself and questions the doctor about the cause. Meanwhile, Derek and his wife are now expecting a child of their own. At Roy's birthday party, Pat, the contractor in charge of the cleanup, tries to befriend Ted, but Ted stays wary. He's disturbed by how relaxed the officials are, despite the risks. Determined to expose the truth, Ted sneaks into a council office and discovers forged documents. They falsely claim that toxic waste was being handled safely. As he copies the files, a council member catches him and issues a veiled threat. Not long after, Ted's car is torched, a clear warning. Meanwhile, Susan's husband becomes distant and eventually leaves her and the kids. Tracy learns her newborn daughter has a severe heart defect, and tragically, the baby doesn't survive. Now a single mother, Susan slowly learns to accept and love her son. When she finds out a friend's baby was born with the exact same condition, she realizes something bigger is at play in Corby. All the while, toxic waste quietly seeps into local streams, contaminating the environment and endangering lives. Time passes. Susan's son Connor undergoes multiple surgeries and struggles with skin issues. A journalist reaches out, suspecting a link between local birth defects and the environment, but Susan declines to talk. Ted's father passes away. Frustrated with the ongoing negligence, Ted gives council member Sam Hagen a copy of the forged contract. Sam confronts Roy with the evidence, but Roy shrugs it off. Sam warns him these are just the copies. He's keeping the originals. Connor's condition worsens, and Susan agrees to another surgery. Tracy, now pregnant with twins, feels anxious due to her past trauma. At the hospital, she runs into Susan and they reconnect. Susan tells her about the journalist. Wanting answers, Tracy encourages Susan to speak with him. That night, Sam finds Ted leaving more documents at his door. Ted urges him to take a stand, but Sam worries he'll lose his council seat. Still, Ted pushes him to do what's right. The next day, Roy corners Sam trying to strike a deal, but Sam resigns instead. Roy reveals he plans to run again and sees the redevelopment project as his ticket to re-election, regardless of the harm it's caused. A newspaper article is soon published about Corby's children. A local woman insults Susan and Connor in public, leading to a fight. Derek's wife, Maggie, visits Susan even though Derek still denies that toxins could be to blame. Around the same time, Tracy gives birth to healthy twins. Later, Susan asks Tracy if they can build a legal case. Tracy agrees and helps her begin the process. Soon, a lawyer named Des Collins, whose mother once taught Susan, visits and expresses his support for the mothers. Elsewhere, Ted is fired from the council for pushing too hard. Sam turns the evidence over to the police. Susan invites the affected mothers to a bar owned by her friend Patty, where they meet Des. She's worried no one will come, but to her surprise, many families show up. Then, disaster strikes. Buildings are set on fire in the middle of the night, and all documents and key evidence are destroyed. Time passes again. The mothers and Des continue building their case. Des tells them they must prove 4 things. 1. A group of women who were pregnant at the same time were affected. 2. There was a clear reason why. 3. Toxic exposure harmed their unborn children. And 4. The council knew about the risk and failed to act. Sam still wants to expose Roy's corruption and negligence, but Ted is given up and stays home. By 2002, a doctor tells the council that there's no way to link the birth defects to the toxins. The council claims all documents were lost in the fire, further delaying the case. Des shares another blow. A new report finds no contamination in the water supply, weakening their argument. Susan, fearing Des is giving up, breaks into the contractor's site with others to collect water samples. But Des reminds them they need to prove that residential water was contaminated, not just the work site. Susan realizes Des is still committed and her trust is restored. Meanwhile, Roy removes Sam from the next election's candidate list. At school, Connor is bullied and suspended after a fight. Pat's corruption charges are dropped. Determined to fight, Sam runs as an independent and publicly accuses Roy of destroying evidence. After much work, Des tells Susan there was a serious flaw in a previous health study. It mistakenly used data from the whole Kettering area, which includes Corby, and then compared it to Corby itself, skewing the results. With corrected data, they confirm a clear cluster of birth defects in Corby. Des also shares good news. A TV program will cover the story. He asks Susan and Maggie to appear. Though Maggie had stepped away from the group, learning about the data error changes her mind. She joins Susan on the news segment, encouraging other mothers to come forward. Later, Des consults another expert who suspects cadmium might be the cause, but proving it in court requires 95% certainty from a fetal medicine specialist. The expert recommends focusing on limb deformities as they're most likely linked to environmental toxins. This narrows the case to just 18 mothers, excluding others, including Tracy. Sam loses the election. Connor undergoes yet another surgery, with the worst-case scenario being hand amputation. The next day, Sam gives Des new evidence. Tracy visits Susan to show support. Thankfully, Connor comes home safely. During a walk, Tracy casually recalls how dusty the area used to be from chemical spills and uncovered trucks. This gives Des a breakthrough. Toxic dust, laced with cadmium, might be the true culprit. At the next group meeting, Des shares this new theory. Experts believe the toxic dust may have spread for miles, contaminating the entire town. He asks the mothers to dig up old photos, anything that can show how bad it was. Thanks to Sam, they also now have documents proving the council's negligence. Des's colleague urges him to tell Tracy she's been excluded from the legal case. But Des can't bring himself to do it. He knows how much this fight means to her. To Tracy, this lawsuit is not about money. It's about justice for the daughter she lost. In 2009, Des and his legal team present their evidence to the council, hoping to reach a settlement. But Roy refuses to acknowledge the claims and dismisses any talk of compensation. With no other option, Des prepares to take the case to court. He has to break the devastating news to Tracy that her daughter's case can't be included in the lawsuit. Heartbroken, Tracy withdraws from everyone and stops responding to calls or visits. Des chooses not to tell Susan what happened with Tracy. During the first court hearing, the defense presents a new model for how the toxic dust spread, arguing that it couldn't have traveled far enough to affect residents. Des now faces the difficult task of disproving their calculations. After the hearing, Des finally confesses to Susan that Tracy was excluded. Susan tries to visit her, but Tracy won't see anyone. Meanwhile, Derek brings Maggie to a party at Pat's new luxurious mansion, but Maggie refuses to go inside, blaming Pat for their son's condition. It's revealed that she's long discouraged Derek from testifying, afraid he'll lose his job. Pat, feeling pressure, urges Roy to settle, but Roy refuses, still clinging to the proud image of the town he once helped build. In court, the defense aggressively challenges Des's case, attempting to discredit the mothers in their claims. Des meets with Sam, asking him to convince Ted to testify. Des believes Ted's testimony could be a turning point. Des then visits Susan and asks her to reach out to Tracy. Though hesitant, Susan convinces her friend to testify, reassuring her, "You've always been the heart of this case." On the stand, Tracy describes the clouds of toxic dust, the uncovered lorries, and the pollution that coated the town's sidewalks. Susan supports her testimony, but the defense attacks her credibility by bringing up her history with depression, drinking, and smoking. Meanwhile, Sam tracks down Ted, now a recluse, reluctant to get involved after everything he's lost. Sam pleads with him to help. Back in court, Des's team uncovers a crucial flaw in the defense's dust model, a missing digit in their math. But to expose it, they need a rare German coal study. The team scrambles to find it. At the same time, Susan's ex-husband, Peter, who left her and the boys, goes back into their lives. For 1 second, Susan thought he'd back to support them, but soon learned from Connor that he is only back for the compensation money. Devastated, Susan throws Peter out of their lives for good. Soon after, Maggie takes the stand, describing how Derek was pressured to haul toxic waste quickly and carelessly without proper protection. Just in time, Des's team tracks down the German study. Their expert uses it to dismantle the defense's claim that the dust couldn't have reached residential areas. Finally, they subpoena Ted. When he takes the stand, he describes the council's reckless mishandling of toxic waste and the warnings that were ignored. The verdict comes down. The court rules in favor of the mothers. Their evidence and testimonies were undeniable. The group celebrates their victory at a local bar filled with relief and quiet pride. Later, Susan finds Tracy at her daughter's grave. As they stand together, they finally say the words they've waited years to speak. "We're done." The case ends in a landmark £14.6 million settlement, making it the first time a court officially linked airborne toxins to birth defects in unborn children. A 2021 report later revealed that hundreds of hazardous sites still exist across the UK, many hidden beneath homes, schools, shops, and parks.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this.